I've often said that slice of life is one of the most difficult genres to recommend to people that don't normally watch slice of life. Mainly because typically it's very slow paced and a lot of its enjoyment really depends on your ability to relate to the characters. But with that said, what I think makes Skip and Loafer so good is that it offers a diverse group of characters with so many different backgrounds and troubles that it's easy to find a certain character that you can kind of connect to. And it's done because at its core, a lot of this story is to do with not judging people based on their appearance or their backgrounds. A series that excels at demasking people and showing their true side, having a character at its center that sort of draws people together. It's a very positive message that I think everybody should check out. But with that said, this is my review of Skip and Loafer, a series that aired in the spring 2023 anime season, beautifully animated by PA Works, so let's jump right into it. Skip and Loafers opens up with a girl named Mitsumi, and Mitsumi has just moved to Tokyo from a remote village. She's a country bumpkin, and she has her entire life planned out before her. From getting good grades to going to Tokyo University, study law, become a valedictorian, go into government itself, work on solutions for depopulations, becoming the mayor of her hometown, improving finances, having her ashes spread, it's all in there. She has it planned down to a T. Well, at her first day in Tokyo, things don't go well. She gets lost, because it's Tokyo, obviously. But thanks to a boy named Sosuke passing by at the time, he kind of helps her find her way to school because they go to the same school, they have the same uniform. And it's from here that you get a really good sense of how hardworking Mitsumi is. She has her entire speech memorized because she was supposed to do a speech in the opening ceremony. Of course, you see the other side of her where she rushes so much into things that, yes, she ends up puking afterwards because she ran all the way there. From this point on, you see how Mitsumi is slowly kind of getting used to her environment now being in Tokyo, making friends and being deceived by others. Very quickly, you get a sense that Mitsumi has the ability to sort of draw people to her. She has a very positive, and yes, you could say naive nature about her that doesn't really kind of jump onto people's appearance and what they're going through. Sosuke put it best in the idea that people just feel comfortable around her. And this is sort of a bad thing in a sense because Mitsumi had this future that she had all planned out, and now she's finding that she's enjoying her time with other people, and it's sort of affecting her plans. So my thoughts on Skip and Loafer. I absolutely adored this series. First of all, visually, I was a little bit off-put by the series. It's a style that I wasn't really used to, but I think looking at the manga itself, I think PA Works really did capture that style. And in the end, as I watched the series, I grew to love it. It has a very soft tone to it that really fits the nature of the series itself, which is honestly not too melodramatic. It's not a heavy series. It's really kind of hitting these story beats with each of the characters, but never getting too heavy with them. It's just enough that you get a sense of what the characters are going through, and it sort of either resolves it or it just decides to move forward. At its core, a lot of this series is about the characters and what they're going through, but at the same time, it's never too much. And yes, for me personally, I'm not a huge fan of melodrama, so seeing how very precise it is with telling each of these stories without getting too stuck in the weeds is really refreshing. Which, yes, is at its core the characters. This series has a fantastic cast of characters. While at times I felt like it was going to get too big of a cast, I think it had a very nice balance to it. At its core, the story is about Mitsumi. Again, say it's because it's her naivety, but she's able to draw people together, and it's through that drawing together that you see this clashing of different types of people, different backgrounds, and different perspectives on the world and relationships. I think early on in the series, it sums it up best in this experience between Mitsumi and Mika. Mika was using Mitsumi to get close to Sosuke. She's seen that Sosuke was hanging out with Mitsumi, and she wanted to get to Sosuke. So she acts like she's Mitsumi's friend, and even discourages her from trusting Sosuke. She wanted to create a divide between the two of them so she can come in and snatch him. And at some point, Yuzuki pulls Mitsumi to the side and says, "You do know that Mika is using you, right?" And Mitsumi's like, "No, I completely missed that." But through her conversation with her friend on the phone, she realizes that their relationship didn't start out so great either. While she's struggling with trying to figure out what people truly are thinking, she just decides to not overthink it. That's simple. Just don't overthink it. Don't assume the worst. Apologizing in her head for even thinking that Sosuke's a bad person. And I should have trusted Sosuke that he wasn't deceiving me, but she also didn't want to believe that Mika was a bad person. What it's establishing here is, yes, a cultural shock for Mitsumi. She is coming from the country where she felt everybody was friends into an environment where everybody's wearing masks. Everybody's concerned with their appearances. I have to look beautiful. I have to be the most popular. I have to have this guy. This person's out to get me. This person's out to get me. Everybody's out to get me. I have to fight tooth and nail to survive. It's a dog-eat-dog world. But Mitsumi doesn't want to acknowledge that. And despite Yuzuki saying that to her, she doesn't want to see it. And as I said, this is literally the core of the show, I think. Because as you see as the series goes along, every story is similar to that. Not the stories are the same, but they have a similar core. And the idea that everybody is so focused on what other people think about them, while Mitsumi in the middle is not paying that attention. And that's what people find so great about Mitsumi. They're drawn to her because they're comfortable around her. And you could chop that up a lot to do with the fact that she's not immediately judging people. While her focus is her schooling and all her future, a lot of people are drawn to her just because she's acceptant of them. And it's through pulling these characters together, like I said earlier, that you start to see the other characters clash. Despite the fact that Mitsumi herself is acceptant of people, they're not accepting of each other. Prime example being Yuzuki and Makoto. Makoto wants to believe that Yuzuki is a pretty girl. She's popular. She's gonna say nasty things about me, just like all of the other pretty girls do. It's preconceived notions that each and every single one of these characters seem to have. While at the core, Mitsumi doesn't dwell on it. And that's what Sosuke sees in her, that she's comforting. And this is justified later on as you see that one character who she thought was making fun of her pin that she has in her shirt, copied it because she liked it, thus showing her that she was right to not think that. Right to not think the worst in everybody immediately. All this is to say that this is the core subject that I think makes this series so positive and so refreshing. Mitsumi is a prime example of what we should all kind of aim for. Not that you should be too aloof, so to speak, about other people's feelings, but also not to prejudge people and allow them to, even if they are technically a bad person, to sometimes sort of find a middle ground just by not dwelling on it. Sometimes you might think that somebody is wronging you, but in actuality, sometimes they're just in a bad mood. I sort of sometimes see myself in Mitsumi in the idea that sometimes I just don't want to deal with it. Yes, there are problems that sometimes you have to address. But in a lot of cases, whenever somebody is negative towards you, it's not because they don't like you, but just that they're having a bad time. And in often cases, if you sidestep that a little bit, and still acknowledge them, that nature will quickly dissipate. And that's why I really, really love Mitsumi's character. But no, besides Mitsumi, I really did love this cast of characters. And like I said earlier, I felt that it really did a good job of balancing it, not having too many characters, but it was getting to the point where it felt a little overwhelming. The only reason I think that it's overwhelming at sometimes is because sometimes you'll find that a lot of the characters get kind of pushed to the side because there's such a large cast. But I think it did a good job of giving each and every single one of them some time to shine. Or not shine in the case of a character like Mika. Each one of them had a story that I really enjoyed getting into. Whether it's Sosuke and his dark past that seems to be slowly creeping up to haunt him, his desire to really not care about anything, but slowly learning to care about one thing. Mika, despite the fact that early on, I just knew she was going to be a bad girl, like a nasty, nasty girl. But even for her, slowly seeing that she keeps being conflicted and having this nature of hers that's blowing up on her face, this desire for appearance that is so important to her. Yuzuki, which I absolutely adored Yuzuki. She is literally the character that, yes, she is beautiful, and she spent her whole life really having that used against her in some way, being pulled into relationships that she honestly never wanted. Just because that's the status quo of so many other people, she's being drawn into it, and it's kind of burned her. And yes, how that story sort of interplays with Makoto. That Makoto assumes that that's the type that she is, despite the fact that that's the thing that she doesn't want to be. Makoto has that preconceived notion of what a pretty girl is. A popular girl that's gonna bash on her, call her a nerd. And I love how later on that sort of plays into Makoto's friends as well. It was really, really heartwarming. I think the only character arc that I didn't really love was probably Tokiko. I think that whole story arc was a little bit too drawn out, and yes, it's a lot about pretty much what Mitsumi used to be in a way, but it's this idea of overworking yourself and finding the moment to stand still and just enjoy what's around you. Through and through, I absolutely love this series, and I don't think I'll ever do it justice. Slice of life series are one of the most difficult to really review because, like I said earlier, a lot of it has to do with relatability as to if people will enjoy slice of life or not, if they're not a big slice of life viewer. But additionally, because a lot of the reasons why I love the show so much, I don't want to really talk about because it would be spoiling each of these characters. Just know that at its core, what this series is about is facades. It's about appearances. It's about deception. And really at its core, having somebody that's willing to look past all that stuff. Which again, like I said earlier, is a very positive message. Something that I think everybody should learn to be able to do at some point. Yes, if you see a facade and it burns you, step away. But at the same time, learn to get past that if it's there. find that opening and allow people to kind of exist with each other. Acceptance is a core concept here, and I think it's a very, very beautifully portrayed one. I think the only negative I would give this series is that it's only one season. I really do feel like this needs more seasons, and that's typically the case with a lot of slice of life. They're a long story, pretty much a segment of somebody's life, and this really does give me a feeling of, yeah, this is a very small segment. Well, yes, the final story arc is impactful for one character. It's a very significant point for a character. I also feel like a lot of the threads within that story are unfinished. Well, yes, bittersweet and a little bit about the idea of just kind of moving forward, it doesn't resolve the issue. And so I do have a little bit of feeling in the back of my heart that I'm like, this doesn't feel finished. Mitsumi, the main character, doesn't really have some significant point in her life. So it almost makes me feel like this is sort of a middle point of a full story. And to have that little small feeling does sort of take it down a step for me. I really do hope this is not one of PA Works' series that is just going to have one core and then never go back to it. But we'll have to wait and see. But anyhow, that's my review of Skip and Loafer. I wish I could say the first season and that a second season get announced, but I don't know, maybe me saying this, it will get a second season announcement. But I hope you guys enjoy this review. If you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. If you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.